Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another show, the Canberra Football Show. Episode 96. 95 was another midweek special. This time we had Nicole Begg, the coach of the NPLW Canberra Olympics side that won the league championship for the first time in their history. Again, congratulations to them. You can go see that on Facebook, Instagram, podcast feeds, and all that. Big show today as we wrap up everything from the last round before finals. Chris Webby joins us to discuss everything that ended with CPL in the regular league season. And of course, we have new CPL champions and a new promoted team to the NPL next season in Yoogali. We'll discuss that more with Webby later in the show. Michael, it's always big when it's the last round of the season. There's ecstatic moments for teams. There's obviously heartbreak for some, but it's all part of the game, and we're here to break it down.
Yeah, that's right, Matt. Plenty happened over this past weekend, that's for sure. And like you sort of touched on there, I want to say congratulations to Yoogali for capturing the CPL league title and promotion to the NPL next season. They've been consistently the best team in CPL this season, so it's fully deserved on their part, and can't wait to see them in NPL football next season. But we'll talk about them a little bit later on when we have Webby back on the show to break all the CPL action down. But like I said, it was a great weekend, some good results, some great games being played, and now we head into that finals festive season. So looking forward to it very much, but we won't get ahead of ourselves too much. We'll break down this last weekend of regular season action before we do move on to finals, which will obviously be a great time in Canberra football. So, Matt, do you want to kick us off with the first game of NPL?
We certainly will, and we'll go from one team that won the CPL and was promoted to the first team to do it in this iteration of promotion in O'Connor Knights. They, of course, had the league title wrapped up 2 weeks ago, but they don't want to stop their winning ways heading into finals, and they did so again against Tigers. 3-0 victors in this one. Going to this encounter, it was a big one for Tigers because they needed at least a draw to make the top four. If they lost, they would need other results to go their way later on. It seemed like Tigers were going to get that draw as it stayed at the deadlock until very late in this game. O'Connor went on a bit of a blitz, scoring 3 goals in the space of 11 minutes at the end of the game at the AIS to leave Tigers' hopes of the top four hanging by a thread. James Driscoll, the man who sealed their league championship last week or the week before, scored the first goal in this one in the 85th minute as he cut in from the left corner and placed it under the keeper. Isosa Rahegi scored his 11th goal of the campaign to make it 2-0 for O'Connor as he broke the offside trap to finish off a great piece of team build-up play. To make matters worse for Tigers, Julian Borgner was sent off 4 minutes into stoppage time. And then 2 minutes after that, Tyson Livermore scored the third and final goal of the encounter as James Driscoll put in a fantastic through ball for Livermore to run onto and put it in the back of the net. It was a tough end to Tigers for this one as the loss meant they needed Monaro and Croatia to lose. Later that night, Tigers' fate was sealed, though, as Monaro beat Tuggeranong by 4 goals, meaning that their goal difference was greater than Tigers, and Tigers were knocked out from the top 4. O'Connor continued their fine form heading into finals, and that has and they've not lost, of course, since round 7. They have the opportunity to go straight into the grand final next week if they win the qualification semi-final on Saturday night against Gungahlin, and same goes for Gungahlin in that instance there if they win. We'll talk about those a little bit later. And talk about Gungahlin, good transition there, Michael. They had a massive victory, which not only cemented them in the top 4, but put them to second place.
Yeah, it did matter. Devastating performance in a good way for Gungahlin United in this match at the expense of West Canberra Wanderers. 8-0. You had Whitehead, Max Green on the score sheet with 4 goals, Bernardo Madrid and George Timotheo with 2 goals of his own. So a fantastic performance from Gungahlin United in this game to really round off the regular season. And that's the sort of result that you want heading into finals football, most definitely a resounding 8-0 win. You can't really ask for much more than that heading into finals football. And as a result of this match, we saw Max Green. He ensured that he would capture the NPL Golden Boot. As I said, he scored 4 goals in this game at Melrose Synthetic, which ultimately signified the end of the West Canberra Wanderers' stay in the top flight in not so great fashion in their last game in NPL football, as I think they shipped 90 goals and didn't pick up a single point in the campaign. But nevertheless, we'll get into the breakdown of this match in terms of, like I said, they got off to the perfect start with Whitehead scoring in the 3rd minute of the game, Matt. And then from that moment onwards, it was a little bit cagey until after the half an hour mark. And that's when Gungahlin really opened the floodgates, where Green scored twice, and then he did so again to open the scoring in the second half with another 2 goals either side of Bernardo Madrid getting on the score sheet, and then Timotheo scoring in the 90th and 92nd minute. So it was just a resounding performance. And we know that this is what Gungahlin United are capable of, especially with the squad that they possess. So it's going to be interesting to see how they do in finals. But like you said, Matt, they racked up enough goals to move into second on the table in the final game of the regular season, going above Canberra Olympic on goal difference, meaning Olympic would need, a point to go back into the top 2 and a place in the qualification final. So it was just a fantastic result for Gungahlin United in this game. They had a lot of positives, obviously, to take out of it with Max Green and just the individual season that he's had since coming over into this Gungahlin United squad for this season. He's been one of the best players, and you could probably make a case for being the best player potentially in NPL this season. It's been a fantastic campaign for him. On the flip side of that, Matt, we obviously have West Canberra, which I touched on a little bit earlier. It caps off a pretty dismal season for them. They lost all 21 of their league games this season and not picking up a single point. I mean, there'll be a lot of disappointment there spread across, the coaches, the players, and the club in general. But I think what they'll need to do moving forward is, obviously reflect on what's happened and what's set and what's done, and they can't change that. But using this time now to, be in a new competition in CPL to do everything they can to try and get themselves back up. So have no doubt that they'll work on many different things in the off season to ensure that they can try and get back up to NPL as quickly as possible. But congratulations, nevertheless, to Gungahlin United. They secure 2nd spot, and can't wait to see them in finals action like we have seen many times over the years. Matt, do you want to get into our next match? A big result for Monaro, but in the grand scheme of things, they fell just a little shy of their top 4 dream.
Yeah, they did. They did their bit on the day, but fate wasn't in their hands. It was in the hands of Canberra, Croatia, and Canberra Olympic. And of course, Croatia got that victory over Olympic, which we will discuss in the next match. But for this one, at that time, Monaro Panthers needed the win to at least put themselves in that conversation. I commentated at this one with Russ. Oh, first of all, sorry, the score was 6-2 to Monaro over Tuggeranong. I commentated on this one with Russ at Riverside, and quick mention, they put on their socials this as well. New facilities there. They look fantastic. It's all near the canteen there. It's all opened up. It's all been concreted, steps and elevation and more stands and whatnot. The new change room as well. So it looks really, really good there. So well done to everyone there. Monaro were raring to go in this one from the first minute of this encounter, as they knew they needed a win in this one by a couple of goals to be above Tigers by the end of the night. Like I mentioned in the Tigers review, Monaro proceeded to score 4 goals in the first half. 2 were courtesy of Stricker. The first was his best one, as it was a curling free kick into the top corner. Absolutely fantastic goal there. Charuti and Bassa Silk rounded out the scoring before halftime, with Bassa Silk lifting up the ball, turning around and hitting it first time. Another great goal here from Bassa Silk. Monaro made it 18 minutes into the second half. Once again, thanks to Bassa Silk for his brace with a tap in at the far post. Tuggeranong grabbed one back 3 minutes later as Clancy Hislop cut inside from the edge of the box and hit a curler for the bottom right corner there. Another really good goal there, this time from Tuggeranong United. Archie Gregor made it 6-1 on the 77th minute mark with a tap-in of his own. Tuggies closed out the scoring of the game at 6-2 as Lewis McKinney scored from the penalty spot. That is 3 out of 3 from the spot for McKinney this season. Tough night for Tuggeranong as they end their season with a defeat. They had a bit of a makeshift backline, as well as there were some defensive absences. However, overall, in the grand scheme of things in the season, they won the games they needed to win, and they finished comfortably above the relegation spot by 14 points. Monaro, on the other hand, picked up a massive victory as it put themselves in the running for finals. They knocked out the Tigers with that margin that they won by, meaning that they would make the finals if Canberra, Croatia did not win the next day on Sunday. Unfortunately for Monaro, their hopes of making that top 4 went out as Canberra, Croatia beat Olympic emphatically, extending Canberra, Croatia's goal difference to plus 15 over Monaro, sending them to the finals this weekend. And that also means that Monaro do not have the opportunity to regain that grand final trophy that they won last season. So Monaro's season is over, as is Tigers, in what was an emphatic top 4 race with 3 or 4 teams all on the same amount of points, and it came down to goal difference. That's how competitive it was for that top 4 race this season. And talking about that top 4 race, Michael, you have the next matchup. Canberra, Croatia make it into the finals, Michael, with a bang.
Yeah, they did, Matt. And we had another emphatic victory scoreline in NPL this weekend. It was Canberra, Croatia 8, Canberra Olympic 1. So Dominici on the score sheet with 6 goals of Canberra, Croatia's 8, which is a sensational individual landmark. Ahmed Shaibu got on the score sheet, as well as Greco and Flores for Olympic. So obviously the headline act in this game was the 6 goals that Stephen Dominici was able to produce in this game, as Canberra, Croatia booked their NPL finals place in some style with that victory over Olympic at Deakin Stadium. He was the star of the show. He scored twice in the first half as Croatia roared to a 4-0 lead at halftime. And then Ahmed Shaibu bagged his 12th goal of the campaign, and Frank Greco scored the other. Olympic, though, they were much changed and resting some of their players, teetering on suspension. So it was wise for them to leave some players out so that didn't sort of carry on over into the finals football fray. But, they were blown away by Dominici, as he struck sort of twice more to move on to 4 for the day before Luca Flores acrobatically pulled one back with, quite the finish, Matt. And, potentially it was important ahead of the end of season showdown, but it was Croatia's day. And in particular, Dominici, as he continued his pursuit of, 7 goals needed to share the golden boot, which would have just been an absolutely miraculous effort if he was able to tie that. But ultimately, he would fall 1 goal short. So he bagged 2 more to move to 20 for the season. Obviously, Max Green finished with 21 goals that I had discussed, not the number of goals that Max Green had scored, but I did mention the fact that he did finish the NPL top scorer this season. So, I mean, before this game and before Canberra Olympic, he had built himself quite a sizable or comfortable lead, let's say, at the top of the NPL goal scoring charts, but that was until this weekend, but he still managed to come away with it. But Canberra, Croatia, like I said, they managed to get themselves in the top 4 with this result, finishing 4th on 35 points, having a better goal difference than 5th placed Monaro, which you had just broken down just before, Matt, earlier in the show. Very close for Monaro Panthers, but ultimately they miss out. And obviously Canberra Olympic finished 3rd on 36 points. So despite the heavy defeat for Canberra Olympic, we know the sort of mindset and approach that they had in the back of their minds. They obviously weren't expecting a big loss like this heading into such a critical part of finals football, but nevertheless, they've got some players that are rested now and that will be ready to go for finals this coming week. And for Canberra, Croatia, it's the perfect momentum that they've been able to, I guess, create for themselves in the final part of this season, because there was a stage where we were unsure if they would make it into the top 4, but they called on their experience and their veteranship to get them through in the end. Matt, do you want to get into our week 1 finals fixtures this coming weekend? Obviously, it's going to be some great football being played.
Oh, it certainly will be. And we do start off with a rematch. Canberra Olympic need to back up from that defeat. There were a couple of players out as well, but obviously backing up from such heavy defeat, they'll be raring to go and trying to redeem that loss there, while Canberra, Croatia arguably are never more dangerous than when they need to make a comeback like they did at the end of the season to narrowly get into that top 4. So we kick off with that one. The elimination semi-final, 3v4. Canberra Olympic versus Canberra, Croatia. Saturday, September 9th, 4 p.m. at Riverside. So the loser of that one will have their season at an end. And then straight after that, at 7 p.m., we have the qualification semi-final, 1v2, O'Connor Knights versus Gungahlin United. Saturday, September 9th, 7 p.m. at the Riverside. The winner of that, obviously straight to the final, and the loser will get another chance since they finished in the top 2. So those should be 2 absolute stellar matches there. And you can, of course, catch all the action on Bar TV. Next up, we have our NPLW segment of the show, where at the top of the broadcast, we mentioned Canberra Olympic won the NPLW title. And they obviously do that with their first league championship of the history for the women's side of the club. Historic moment for them. This, of course, accompanies the grand final victory and the Federation Cup finals wins last year. They sealed this achievement with a 2-0 victory over Belconnen United on Tuesday. Maddie Whittle and Arusha Chu with the goals on Tuesday night. And they also won their last match of the season, which was also a catch-up from a couple of rounds before, over Tuggeranong United 6-0. Arusha Chu with a hat-trick there. Nicole Jaloka, Cern and Otolu with the goals on that night. They played their last round matchup against Gungahlin a couple of weeks before. As I said, you can check out my interview with Nicole Begg on Facebook, Instagram, and the podcast feeds for episode 95, where she talks about the journey that this team went on over the last couple of years, which has led to the moment and the rise of Canberra Olympic women's Quite the story. And once again, congratulations to them. Well deserved. What an achievement for everyone at the club. And I'm sure they won't want to stop there, as they will be heading into finals this weekend. But for all football purists, the league title is always the most important, and it was the one missing from their cabinet. So they have done so, and now they'll be turning their eyes to finals. All right, Michael, and talking about finals, we have Canberra, Croatia, who will be in those finals. However, they needed a late goal against a side in West Canberra Wanderers that was so close to getting the victory.
Yeah, Matt, that's right. What an entertaining game this one was, though. 4 apiece between West Canberra Wanderers and Canberra, Croatia. It was Jensen, Whitfield, Walker, and Brown on the score sheet for West Canberra, and for Canberra, Croatia, it was Palombi with a double, Barak and Marzes on the score sheet. As we get into this match, Matt, you know, it was probably one of the surprising results in NPLW this past weekend. Definitely some of the most highly entertaining football of the year that we've seen across the capital, particularly in NPLW football. West Canberra Wanderers, they gave absolutely everything in this 8-goal thriller against Canberra, Croatia. And what makes it even more impressive is the fact that, you know, they came back from 3 goals down to take the lead 4-3 in this one before, like you mentioned, a late equaliser stopped them from completing a fairy tale end to their season. But it was Croatia who started brightly, and, you know, they were up 3 to the good by the 21st minute, 2 goals to Palombi, who took her tally to 23 goals this season with 2 powerful left-footed finishes. So, again, she's had a prolific season for Canberra, Croatia in front of goal, and then it was Isabella Barak who showcased her talent to score the 3rd goal of the game, give them that 3-0 lead, perfect start that they would have wanted. But then it was the Wanderers' recovery that started, and that was Jensen and her left-footed shot from distance 5 minutes before the break to spark the comeback. Then Whitfield imitated her, got the second before half-time. Walker equalised just after the hour mark. And then that was as a result of taking advantage of a back pass along the Canberra Croatia defence. So before you knew it, it was 3-0, but then it quickly turned to 3-3 as we got into the second half, and then the home team thought they had done all that hard work to get themselves in the lead through Ellen Brown after netting their 4th 10 minutes before the final whistle from a corner kick. But their hopes were cut short when Tatum Marzes scored in the 86th minute to put the team level and make it 4-4, condemning West Canberra to the wooden spoon in the NPL competition. So this game just had absolutely everything, and I don't think many would have expected West Canberra to come back from that deficit early in the first half, but that's just a testament to their effort and the fact that they didn't slow down and they didn't give up, and that there was plenty of time for them to turn things around and get back into the match. So like I said, it would have been a fairy tale ending for them to win a match like this against one of the best teams in the competition, who were, as we know, about to play finals football, but it wasn't meant to be at the end of the day. But what a game of football to round out the NPLW season for West Canberra Wanderers on this occasion. We know that Canberra Croatia finished 3rd on 41 points, Matt, which was equal with Gunners, but Croatia had the better goal difference, and we know that West Canberra finished in last place, which is a shame because that's obviously what happened in NPL as well. So both the NPL and NPLW teams finishing in last position in their respective leagues. Matt, do you want to move on to the next match, where Belconnen United got an impressive away victory heading into finals football this weekend?
Yeah, they did. They beat ANUW 2-0. I was there commentating with Russ on this one, and it was not the ideal start, as the match started about nearly about 25 minutes late, as there were no referees. Capital Football TD Phil Booth stepped in to officiate the match until a referee could arrive, which was about 15 minutes in, and then the two clubs had linesmen from each side doing it for the rest of the match, because the match needed to be played as time was running out before finals. And I believe some of the players as well, the very next day, were heading to Thailand for a futsal comp. So this one needed to be done. So well done to all involved there, including Phil Booth, for filling in, stepping up to officiate that one as well. Heading into this one, Belconnen United knew its fate for the league title as they lost to Olympic 2-0 2 days earlier, as we mentioned in the Olympic review. So in this one, they needed a draw to cement themselves into second place. Belconnen opened the scoring in the 3rd minute as a corner was whipped in the box, and a challenge for the header was made, and the aftermath of that fell to the path of Talia Backhouse, who hit a very nice volley for the corner. Really nice goal here from Backhouse. Backhouse was unlucky not to get another one, as she hit a fantastic curling strike from outside the box that dipped and hit the crossbar. Belconnen United ended the night 2-0 up, as Ella Palfreman got in the right position in the box to tap home the second in the 76th minute, making an impact from the bench. ANUW had some good moments defensively here, with Eilish McDonough especially a standout for them. Their NPLW season is now over, finishing in 6th place, 13 points, 3 wins and 4 draws, including some good results over some big teams. So a good debut NPLW season for ANUWFC, and they will be proud, I'm sure, of their efforts. Belconnen United secured the point that they needed for second place, while I'm sure they'll still be feeling disappointment before this one for not sealing the league title. However, I'm sure they'll be turning their minds, and it'll be switched to trying to capture finals glory, which they have not done since 2019, I believe. So a lot for them to play for moving forward. Michael, as we head into the last match of the season, it was an absolutely fantastic victory for Tuggeranong United to end their campaign. Who did they defeat on the day?
Yeah, it was a huge victory for Tuggeranong United to finish out their season, Matt. A 1-0 win against the Canberra United Academy. A win, a clean sheet away from home. You really couldn't ask for much more for Tuggeranong United. They'll be very happy with that victory to round out their season. And, you know, for Tuggeranong, yeah, it had its up and downs, but, you know, they ended the season with a goal in this game that was scored by Niles in the 60th minute. But it was her teammate as well that made the two of them, two players that were instrumental to the first goal scored in 2023 for them at Wanderers Park in March. So they linked up again to prove to be the difference for Tuggeranong United in this game. Just a great goal from Niles. Like I said, at the hour mark of the match, such a vital point to establish a lead in this game and obviously continue that into the rest of the match to ultimately get the 3 points, like I said, and they'll be happy with that clean sheet as well. It's been a very positive season, I think, for Tuggeranong United, especially considering their performances in past seasons. But nevertheless, it means that for Tuggeranong United, they finished 7th this season, Matt. 4 victories in total from their 21 games. While that might not seem like a lot, we know what sort of path that they've been on over the past few years and how victories have sort of been a lot more difficult to come by. So for Tuggeranong United to play the way that they did this season and pick up 4 victories in total is a great step in the right direction for Paulo Romero and Tuggeranong United. So they finish 7th on 13 points. So also claiming double-digit point total is another positive for them as well. And then for Canberra United Academy, They finished a distant fifth, Matt. They've ended up finishing 12 points outside the top four with 29 points. So I think Matty Moore will definitely look at the positives throughout the season. They certainly had some very big results throughout the season as well. And we know more than anything, it's more about developing those young players over at the CUA. So they can obviously they would have liked to make the top four. I'm sure that was the goal at the start of the season. But nevertheless, like I said, they had some great performances of victories throughout this season that they should be very proud of. And although it's not the result that they wanted at the end, especially at home, you sort of want to finish off the season on a high with a victory, but it just wasn't meant to be. Matt, do you want to get into our NPLW finals week 1 fixtures before we get into CPL?
Yeah, and the finals have been moved to midweek. I'm assuming that's because of the some of the players that will be playing this are in Thailand at the moment for futsal. I could be wrong there, but it has been moved nonetheless to midweek. And we kick things off with the qualification semi-final, 1v2, Canberra Olympic versus Belconnen United, Wednesday, September 13th. And the venue is to be confirmed. Keep an eye on the Capital Football, NPL Capital Football website and the socials there. They'll keep you informed on that venue. And then the elimination semi-final, 3rd v 4th, Canberra, Croatia against Gungahlin United, Thursday, September 14th, venue to be confirmed as well there. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our CPL segment of the show, and it is with great pleasure to welcome back Chris Webby. Before we get stuck into CPL, let's chat just a little bit about the O'Connor Knights winning the NPL League for football purists. That is, of course, the main goal. And we, of course, asked you because you know O'Connor Knights very well from the CPL days. What do you make of it? Only 18 months from being promoted, they are the champions of the NPL and in style as well, most deservedly, as they were the best team over the whole season. And not just that, it also shows that promotion relegation from CPL/NPL is still needed and was probably needed a little earlier.
Yeah, look, it's quite amazing, really. Like you said, not even doing it, but the way that they did it. They finished. I don't have the table in front of me, but I think that they ended up about 15 or so points ahead of second. And
I think it was about 8.
How tough that competition was, where second and sixth was a point between second and sixth, yet they streaked ahead. And I talk about with Capital Football a lot about what is about a boundary of whether you're too good for a competition. We kind of talk about it in State League to say, if you're getting 2 points per game or more, you're probably too good for that. They got like 2.5 points per game in NPL. It was absolutely amazing to come up from, CPL and then within 2 years be completely dominating that league. Just absolutely fantastic. So look, hats off to the Trinity boys. They've done a very, very good job. And even 23s, I think, ended up second. Deakin was a runaway winner in 23s, but to come second in that comp as well. So first and then second, what more do you want? And, they're doing really well in youth as well. It's amazing.
Yeah, 100%. And sorry, I don't know where I got 8 points from. My bad. It was 15 points. I don't know. Where did I get 8 from? I was probably still thinking a couple of weeks ago when they won the title by 8 points. That's probably where. Anyway, so yeah, absolutely incredible there. We've talked about it. Obviously, everyone listening, you can go check out my interview with Alex Tuggeranong. Breaks the journey down quite well and quite thoroughly there in that 15-minute conversation. But the reason why we asked that is because there is a new team being promoted to the NPL, of course. We'll talk about it in more depth, Webby, but just first, your quick thoughts on Yoogali. They've only been in the comp, 3 years? They took over the Riverina Rhinos license at the end of 2019, first season 2020. but they started from NPL 2 as it was then, not from NPL 1. So gotten there the hard way over a couple of years of COVID and whatnot, but you have to say thoroughly deserved over the year as, yeah, for large stretches, they were the best team there.
Yeah, and look, if you ever went back to my preseason preview, I didn't have them probably in the top 3. I think, I thought it would be a big race between ANU, Belconnen, and Queanbeyan, and I thought, look, they'll give the 4th spot a good shake, but they clearly proved me wrong. We talked about it that first year in 2020. They won every single game till the last game of the round, that COVID year, but they absolutely dominated. But they had kind of dropped off a little, and last year was pretty disappointing from their what they wanted to get out of it, and they set themselves a pretty high bar. So last year, wasn't the greatest, and so it was always going to be interesting to whether they could kind of pick back up to those heights, but they've done that and more. And they started off pretty poorly this year, and that's when we kind of thought, oh no, that's about where they are. And then after round 3, I think they were undefeated for 15 games or something crazy, like just an amazing run. And I know those guys are champing at the bit to jump up to NPL next year, and I'm sure Darren Bailey will love it. He's played for a number of the clubs already currently in NPL, so he'll love going back into that world and leading the team in there. So look, I think not being from Canberra and not having access to all the Canberra players and coming from a smaller pool, they'll have to do some recruiting somehow from outside, whether it's from their kind of eternal rivals in Henwood, and whether there's some guys that they can pick up there to play in the higher league, or whether they can pick up some guys from kind of that Wagga region, or whether they've got to kind of look in, not even interstate, but cross the shores to try and pick up a few extra players, some visa players. But regardless, they will be definitely one to watch. And it's always tough, that travel, but I think a lot of the NPL teams are gonna struggle with the travel the other way. They're seasoned travel professionals coming to Canberra, and now it's up to. I think it's going to be a shock to the system for some of the NPL clubs, who haven't done that trip since the Rhinos were there like 6 years ago. So, yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting next year.
Michael, talking about promotion, we kick it off with a team in Queanbeyan that won their match on Saturday and had a match in hand against Wagga. However, due to Yoogali's victory, they were not able to do so. But with this victory, they did put themselves in the running until about an hour after the match. What is this matchup that I'm talking about?
Yeah, so we have Queanbeyan City defeating Canberra Juventus 3-0. It was Guerrero, Ayul, and Makevsky on the score sheet for the hosts. So Juventus did a really good job to hold Queanbeyan out until, the halftime interval where they went in 0-0 at the Sheds. But it was Queanbeyan who opened the scoring 6 minutes into the second half via Noel Guerrero. And then they doubled their lead again through Gabriel Ayul. So Ayul came on as a substitute 5 minutes earlier, so he made an immediate impact to get on the score sheet and double Queanbeyan's lead in the 70th minute. And it was then Goran Makevsky who extended the lead to 3-0 9 minutes later in the 79th minute. He also came on as a substitute at the same time as Ayul. So another Queanbeyan player making an impact off the bench, which is something that they would have been very happy with. On the flip side, it was a tough loss for Juventus as the result of White Eagles versus Wagga relegated them to the wooden spoon and the bottom of the table via goal difference. So just heartbreaking for Canberra Juventus under those circumstances. And unfortunately for them, it could sort of mean possible relegation depending on circumstances. We won't know what the other outcome means for a bit though. So regardless, Juventus had some really good moments this season, getting some big wins after being competitive in a lot of matches this season, especially for their first season back in CPL football. On the other side of the equation, Queanbeyan got a crucial win that kept them in the running for promotion based on Sunday's results. However, that could all be out the window if Yoogali drew or beat Brindis, which finished obviously 1 hour later, Matt, that you touched on earlier. But unfortunately for Queanbeyan, Yoogali won and are the side that will be promoted to NPL football next season. So in hindsight, the loss to Belconnen a couple of weeks ago was the pivotal moment in Queanbeyan's season. It's one that they'll look back on and wish that they could rewrite. So Queanbeyan were the closest to promotion that they have ever been since CPL/NPL2 was initiated. So no doubt they will try all guns blazing next season to try and accomplish that goal that we know that they are so desperate to achieve. So they'll now play Yoogali in the qualification semi-final this week at Deakin Stadium. Webby, what are your thoughts on this contest? Obviously a comfortable 3-0 win for Queanbeyan as it proved to be in the end for this contest. But obviously their main goal just came short at such a pivotal time at the end of the regular season here before finals.
Yeah, look, it's an interesting theme. I was talking to you guys off camera before about my State League One team, and we won our game and got ourselves into finals position only to find out someone else had won and dropped us back. Monaro was the same in NPL. They won on the Saturday and saw Tigers lose, but then it was up to what happened at the Deakin game. And it's just that same story. They did what they needed to do. Look, interesting enough, Juventus also had a lot to play for then. They were only 3 points ahead of White Eagles going into that game. With White Eagles had the superior goal difference. So Juve knew they needed a point to ensure that they didn't come last and win that relegation spot. And look, they put it up to them. 0-0 at half time when Queanbeyan had everything to play for. So kind of pretty. You got to give it to Juventus for kind of where they were in the season, but really taking it to Queanbeyan in that game. But takes a player like Noel, who he's fantastic player, could be playing professionally, yet he's playing in CPL here, and to break the deadlock. And from then on, you kind of thought it was uphill for Juventus, and Queanbeyan really just had to go for that second killer goal, which Gabriel got, and off they went. So, look, in the end, Queanbeyan did what they needed to do and just had to kind of pray that little bit harder for other results. For Juventus, I guess they probably had that same thing where, all right, they had to go and do the ring around and see what happens with White Eagles and Wagga. And look, we'll get into that game soon.
Yeah, that's right. We will get into that game soon. Matt, do you want to get into our next contest in CPL action?
Yeah, it was the pivotal matchup that we mentioned before for Yoogali as they beat Brindabella Blues 1-0 at home. As mentioned also previously, Yoogali only needed a draw from this encounter to seal promotion to NPL and become CPL League Champions. Yoogali scored the only goal of the match 19 minutes into the contest. Mason Donadell finished off a terrific piece of team play from the host, which spanned nearly 3/4 of the field, really. The goal is on their Facebook page, so go check it out. Fantastic team play there. That ultimately sealed them promotion, a historic goal for them. Nonetheless, in their Canberra football endeavours, for Brindabella Blues, the defeat does not affect their spot in the finals. They drop to 4th place, however, meaning that they will face ANU next week in the elimination semi-final since they finished 3rd place. But a victory nonetheless would not have meant they finished 2nd regardless. Historic moment for Yoogali, though, as they seal promotion to NPL for the 3 years after joining the competition in 2020. They took, as mentioned before, they took place of the Riverina Rhinos. However, they started in NPL2 as it was then, winning the league title in their first season, finishing runners-up in the grand final in the first season to Wagga, there was no promotion though that season. They finished this season without dropping a single point at home, making Solomad a complete fortress, which I'm sure they'll try to do next season as well in NPL. They led the majority of the season and were the standard bearers for much of the season. A lot of hard work here for Darren Bailey's side. Congratulations to them. What a fantastic achievement and well-deserved. Thoughts on this one, Webby? We mentioned Yoogali, if you want to touch on them a bit as well, but also on the Brindis, as very similar theme to last year, as they picked up form right at the end of the season to get themselves into finals contention.
Yeah, look, kind of it's what we talked about with Yoogali. I don't think there's any more to say there. The only thing I found surprising was that it was only Mason Donadell's 6th goal of the season. So when he, especially last year, he was just the shining light for that team last year. So when they go on such an amazing championship winning run, I would have expected him to be, more around the 15 goals. But, he's still a fantastic player. He's probably had a little slightly different role this year. But look, again, fantastic for him to get the winner. From Brindy's point of view, look, I actually think going to Yoogali, as you said, no one's even taken a point there. To go and only lose 1-0, it's tough. It's a very tough trip out there against a team that's riding on a high and needed something to guarantee the league title. So, look, they, as you said, they are just hitting form at the right time, Brindy, and this is exactly what they did last year. And so we all know what happened last year, seconds away from a championship, and who knows if they'll take it a few seconds more improved this year. So look, it's going to be interesting.
It certainly will be interesting, and we'll see if Brindis can replicate what they did at the end of last season in terms of this season. Michael, next up is a matchup in which the Canberra White Eagles got a pivotal victory.
Yeah, it was very pivotal, Matt. We know what was at stake heading into this clash for them, and they managed to get a 3-1 win over Wagga City Wanderers away from home. And Yoogali on the score sheet for Wagga. For White Eagles, it was Lawrence with a double and Kagler on the score sheet for the White Eagles in this contest. So they scored their first goal, Matt, in over 450 minutes. We know the sort of drought that White Eagles were on in front of goal. They were struggling a lot in the final third, but they broke that drought via Zach Lawrence in the 23rd minute of the game, taking his side into the sheds at halftime with a 1-0 advantage. And then they doubled their lead through Lawrence again for him to score his second and Eagles' second goal of the game in the 78th minute. So this goal, means he finished the season with double digits, scoring 10 goals for the CPL campaign. So a great season individually for Zach Lawrence in CPL for Eagles this season. But Wagga immediately struck back to half the deficit, 2 minutes later via Thomas Yoogali. And then it was White Eagles who struck back after just 3 minutes to make it 3-1 in the game and seal the all-important victory to end the season. So the loss for Wagga means that they ended the season in 6th, despite the match in hand to be played the next day versus Queanbeyan for 2023. This match finished 1-1, meaning Wagga finished the season with 25 points, 6 points off the top 4. Jake Polongas scored the goal for Wagga, his 15th of the campaign. So another individual performance that gets recognised in CPL for Polongas. And for Eagles, they left it late, but they avoided the wooden spoon and possible relegation to State League on the final day of the campaign. They just managed to leapfrog Canberra Juventus, as we mentioned earlier, in their breakdown via goal difference, as they were both tied on 15 points. So Eagles will be breathing a massive sigh of relief in a campaign that was filled with a lot of difficulty and a lot of struggle, but they at least managed to stay in the competition, and now they can reset and look to improve for the 2024 season. Webby, what did you make of this result for Canberra White Eagles? Obviously, last game of the regular season on the road, and there's just so much to play for. You have your status in the league to play for essentially if you don't get a victory, and then they went out there and they got a massive 3 points.
Yeah, look, probably wasn't quite as crazy as what happened in the women's NPL and the relegation battle there yesterday, but not too far off. They came in, they'd only won 2 games all year, had to win away in Wagga to even have a chance, because if Juventus got something out of it, then it didn't even matter. So absolute backs against the wall, and I think if a lot of people had written them off as relegated already. So massive, absolutely shows just such a drive to go out there and win that game. So look, absolutely huge. Yeah, I know. I'm pretty sure Dayan was away and that they were missing a few players, and so really backs against the wall, but they went out and did it. So fantastic. And look, huge rebuild they've got. As we kind of talk about constantly, they're such a big club in this league that even them flirting in the relegation zone was just crazy. But they've got a lot of rebuilding to do to get back into that kind of top 4 conversation, really. So big there for Wagga. Look, it's just been a really disappointing end. They were kind of 3rd for a big chunk of the season and really more likely in the race to try and pip 2nd, maybe even take 1st spot. They weren't that far off Yoogali and Queanbeyan for a good, but it's just been a really disappointing end to not even kind of stay in that title race, but then to just drop well and truly out of the top 4 race as well. And they're the ones who kind of finished in that no man's land, out of the top 4, way away from that bottom 2, and not the greatest finish for Wagga. Especially when they were really showing something at the start.
Yeah, and a couple of points there as well. It was announced on the White Eagles Facebook page that Angelo Zaris has decided he will not be back at White Eagles next season. So the rebuild, we will be without Zaris. Best of luck to Angelo Zaris. Thank him for sending me all the footage he did throughout the season for CPL. And in terms of Wagga, like you mentioned, a disappointing end to them, but they just weren't able to overcome some of those injuries that they suffered throughout the season.
Yeah, that's right, Matt. We'll move on to our next contest, Matt, which was between 2 sides that had, when you look at it in the grand scheme of things, these are 2 of the top sides, definitely in the CPL competition, Matt. But it was the away side that managed to pip a victory in this one, wasn't it?
Yeah, it certainly was. And we talk about crazy top 4 races, and this was also one that went right down to the wire. Heading into it, it was a do-or-die match for both. Belconnen only needed a draw to make it to the finals. However, ANU needed a win to make it. This tense encounter, the deadlock was broken by ANU in the 74th minute via Rory Spears. The informed striker scored his 12th goal of the season here, and which means he is 5th on the goal scoring charts. This turned out to be the only goal of the encounter and an all-important one for ANU. Spears' strike cancelled out Belconnen's chances of finals football as they finished 1 point off the top 4, dropping from 3rd to 5th place. That is how competitive this race was. And we mentioned a few weeks back, ANU were picking up form at the right, just in time for that race. And picked up some crucial wins in that time. They won 3 out of their last 4, bouncing back from that loss last week to the Brindabella. And they will now play the Brindabella next week in that elimination semi-final. Thoughts on this one, Webby? We've mentioned how ANU and finals football in the CPL slash NPL2. They always find a way to get in there, bar maybe 1 or 2 years over the last who knows how many. And then, of course, Belco. They looked like they were going to finish in the top 4. I mean, ultimately for them, their promotion dreams did end a lot sooner than they were hoping for. So overall, not the season that Belco were hoping for in general.
Yeah, definitely. I think as I said, if you went back to my pre-season preview, I would have had, and if you pushed me hard, I would have said the title will come. It will be a 2-horse race between Belconnen and ANU, probably. Then, 25 weeks later, they're in essentially a quarterfinal to get into, just to make it into the semis. I wouldn't have predicted that. And it's really surprising that both those teams were even in that position. But really, it's kind of kudos to the 3 teams above for forcing them into that position. Shows just how well Yoogali and Queanbeyan and Brindabella did. And look, again, I'd say it pretty disappointing now from Belconnen's point of view to come down. And not just any old club coming down, but one of the biggest clubs in Canberra, probably, top behind Deakin, probably the most successful club over the last 20 years in first grade, to then drop down and then not even make the top 4, especially when we talked about it. I think we talked about when Talal was on start of the year with guys like Robbie Cadillac and Dustin Wells, who Talal and I fully agreed, probably the 2 best players from Canberra from the past 15 years together in that team, but on the wrong kind of side of 35. And, even with all that class, age catches up to everyone other than Messi and Ronaldo. But, we talked about even pre-season. They looked so sharp in the early rounds of the FA Cup, and they just looked really good. But as we said, you can't rest on your laurels in this competition. It's a very tough competition, and again, talking about White Eagles having a lot of rebuilding to do, Belconnen are going to have a lot of rebuilding to do. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens there. Whether some of those older guys, I don't know, but I could kind of feel that maybe they kind of went in there to say, look, we'll give you 1 more year to get you back up. But I'm not sure whether it'll be interesting to see whether they go around again. There's other options. There's State League and Masters and all kinds of things on offer for some of those guys, and what some of the younger guys do as well, whether they try and kind of work their way back into NPL world, whether that be 23s, or whether they're going to hang around. So very, very interesting to see what happens at Belconnen. For ANU, look, as you said, it's inevitable that they make finals. And as we've seen, once that team's in finals, they're usually favourites to win finals. And it wouldn't surprise me if they come from where they are now and win the grand final. They do have so much firepower in that team. It's, again, as we said, while, in the end, they got into 3rd spot. I'd say that they'd probably be reasonably disappointed with their season so far. And that's, shows kind of the standards that they have, that they really should have been in a title race, yet instead they were just pushing to make the top 4. Again, on that similar vein, I wouldn't be surprised if this was kind of the last time that people like Yarn and Chase go around. So maybe there'll be a big internal push from the club if it is those guys last year in CPL. What better way to send them off than another one of many grand final wins. So look, congratulations to them for getting it in, but probably shouldn't have been in that position in the first place. But again, as we said, it's a very tough league. Someone has to be in that position, and they've had a pretty good end to the season, and let's see what they do from here.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see who ends up on the top of the pile after finals, which will be on Bar TV, by the way, on Sunday at Deakin Stadium, which is awesome to see. So not just the grand final here. So if you're not able to get to the match, check it out on Bar TV. And talking about those matches, Michael, what are those two semi-final matches? And let's throw in Webb'ys thoughts as well after it, shall we?
Sure thing. We've got the CPL finals for week 1. We've got the qualification semi-final between first and second, which was obviously Yoogali up against Queanbeyan City, Sunday, September 10, 4 p.m. at Deakin Stadium, which is then followed by the elimination semi-final between third versus fourth, which is ANU FC up against Brindabella, Sunday, September 10, 7 p.m. straight afterwards at Deakin Stadium. Where we'll quickly get your thoughts on these two sort of fixtures, what you think will happen, and I guess who you think will prevail, if you want to give some predictions out.
Look, it's interesting because if you go back to last year, it's almost the exact same semi-final. So everything that we've talked about for the last half an hour, you can throw that out to go, should have predicted this because this is how it ended up last year. And, substitute Tuggeranong for Yoogali, and that was what the semi-finals finished. In those matches up, Tuggeranong really put Queanbeyan to the sword in that 1v2 game. And Brindabella surprised everybody by knocking ANU out. And then Brindabella went and knocked Queanbeyan out and straight into the final. So, look, from Brindabella's point of view, they'll be like, boom, the exact same pathway to the finals we had last year. We did it last year. Why can't we do it again? So, again, it's probably not what I would predict. As I said, I'd probably predict ANU to win that, but can't be surprised if ANU and Brindy are probably two of the top form teams in this comp, so that's actually going to be a really cracking game, that one. And look, Queanbeyan and Yoogali have been going head to head for this title for majority of this season. So I think there might be a little bit of spice in this game, I think. So it will be very, very interesting, that 1v2 game. Look, anyone's game. I wouldn't be surprised if anyone wins from here. I was talking to someone again similar to the NPL. I would not be surprised if Canberra, Croatia win from where they were, kind of sixth spot for the majority of the season, and I could see them winning from where they are. I could see ANU or Brindy winning from here, but similarly, you would expect it to be one of Yoogali and Queanbeyan, but who knows? I clearly don't.
No, look, it's certainly going to be hard to predict. I mean, it's a good point that you raised there about Brindabella, the sort of near fairy tale that they were able to complete last season and making it all the way to the final, losing, at the very end to Tuggeranong United in what was an entertaining game. So expect nothing less this time around for the CPL 2023 finals. Matt, you want to share sort of your last thoughts before we wrap up this latest episode on the show?
Yeah, it should be interesting. I guess the question I have, will that sort of disappointment from Queanbeyan of not getting promotion and being so close sort of affect that final match? We'll wait and see. Obviously, they have the quality to do it, as all these teams do. But that is, I would say, the big question. And yeah, just my final thoughts are this should be absolutely cracking, as with the other finals as well. We all know finals football, very different to league football. It can all you can flip it with a coin really and see how it goes. And once again, I stress all these matches are on Bar TV, which is awesome for the CPL especially. Webby, do you have any last thoughts before we head off? Like Newcastle being the group of death, mate, or what?
Oh, look, I'm happy to talk about Newcastle's champions. As long as we don't talk about their Premier League form, then that's all right. So, yeah. No, I look forward to the Champions League. It'll be great. From everyone across, CPL, the women's and men's NPL, and the 23s and reserves, just good luck to everybody, and I look forward to seeing some good football.
We certainly will. Michael, any last thoughts before we head?
No, I mean, I sort of said it earlier. I mean, these matches in finals football always are entertaining. They always provide, drama, good and bad. So, I mean, it's going to be an entertaining weekend to say the least. There's going to be a lot going on. Some really good games at the forefront as well. So, can't wait to break it all down next time on the show.
Yeah, we certainly will be back with that for episode 97. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Best of luck to everybody in finals. As always, everybody, enjoy the football and have a great weekend.